There we go. We are on the air. So we are looking at lesson 1.6, and I'm just reviewing the information we have right here. So based on the cost of gasoline and the mileage for her car, we can figure out how much gas costs per mile. And then we have to factor in the cost and average miles for each of these other figures here. So I put all of those figures into my spreadsheet. And then I asked my spreadsheet to add them up. So that's, I'll come back to that number in just a second. Yeah, so I'll come back to that. But so I added up all those things, right? The repairs, cost per mile, tires cost per mile, maintenance cost per mile, insurance plus cost per mile, and the gas cost per mile. For the 4Runner, right? Gas cost per mile will be different for each vehicle. So altogether, I get about 31 cents per mile. So I'm just going to make a note of that. So now I'm working on question 7. So in question number 7, we're asked to try and come up with a formula for this. Okay? So the formula is going to be for total cost for Jenna's 4Runner. Total cost. And so far, the important figure I have is that it's 31 cents per mile for her to run that vehicle, given her fees and maintenance stuff. Now, if I pick a variable, the number of miles varies for every trip, agreed? So that's my variable. So I'm going to use X because that's a fun number, a fun letter to beat the heck out of in algebra. So if X is the number of miles that she goes, right, that's an X, not a times, letter X. So if I take the 31 cents per mile times X number of miles, the miles cancels out from our unit conversion work, right? Leaving just dollars behind. So if the 31 cents encompasses all possible fees and gasoline that go into her 4Runner, this should be my equation for the total cost of running her 4Runner. So all she needs to know now is how long is the trip. Like maybe she's going to go from Pendleton to Lincoln City. That's like 300 miles to get there. So that means it's a 600-mile round trip. So if I wanted to know how much does it cost for her to run the 4Runner to Lincoln City and back, I would just take 600 miles times the 31 cents per mile. And that's how much it costs her gas plus to go to Lincoln City. Emily had asked, where did my $100 and something come from here? So to get that number right there, what I did is I made an equation. I said, take the 31 cents per mile and multiply that by the number of miles she has to go. Now she had to go, what, 193 miles one way? So I'm going to take 193 times 2, and that's where the 117.84 came from. If instead I did, the Lincoln City trip, I would say take that 31 cents per mile times that 300-mile distance and then double it because it's a round trip. And so it would cost her $183, factoring in everything, like she had to buy those tires, right? That's part of her expenses, right? So my friend runs a taxi company, and he's got to factor all of this stuff in. If he just charged his customers 31 cents a mile, would that be a good thing for him? It'd be a hell of a deal for his customers, right? But he needs to get paid too. So he would have to factor in some like time and distance on top of that. But if he doesn't know what it costs to run his vehicle, could he run his business into the ground? Yeah, he's got to factor that stuff in, right? So that's what we're doing here. I'm going to delete that. Does that help, Robert? For that one right there? Yeah, and it could be you're going to factor other stuff in too, but I think basically that'll do it for us. That based on the information we were given in number 5 and how you rounded, we get about 30, 31, 32 cents per mile. Multiply that by the number of miles, that'll give us a formula.
But these are how many miles she went.
Right, and that's the thing. So that's why they said we had to have a variable. So that's why I put that X in there. So I'm just going to make another note underneath and just say X is the number of miles for any given trip. So then if someone says, hey, Jenny, you got to take a trip, all she has to do is figure out how many miles it is and plugs it in, and out comes the answer. Like Lincoln City is 600 miles. Maybe she's only got to go to Hermiston. Maybe that's a 30-mile trip one way, 60 miles both ways. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions on the cost of driving, lesson 1.6. All pretty good on that? Okie dokie. So we're going to put this away for right now. We'll have a little bit of time at the end if you want to tie stuff up, or you can give me your written work by tomorrow. So I'm hoping to get lesson 1.6 from you today or tomorrow. You already got it?
Yeah.
Well, let me take it today if you got it. Anything else? Cool. I will give 1.4 back right now. Good question. I didn't finish 1.5 yet, but I got 1.4. Let's see, right here. Emily, 1.4. These were really good. Tristan. Oops. That's not Robert. It's page 2. I did find it online. It was there. Just hide. Cool. Here's something over here. Just okay.
On that, which one was 1.6 or something, it said something somewhere about doing a spreadsheet, but we did it in class, so.
Yeah, if you used a spreadsheet, you could upload it. But you didn't have to do that, no. Yeah, so what Robert is asking about is in 1.6 here, it says create a spreadsheet to summarize your parts. Oh, I did want everyone to do that. Do I still want everyone to do that? Nah, we'll skip that. Let's edit that and put an optional on that. Take it down to 10 points. All right, so we'll make that part optional and save it. All right, if anyone wants to try their hand at making a spreadsheet, kind of like this one here, go for it. I'll gladly help you with it. All right, so we're going to take a look at lesson 1.7. We've already practiced some of the stuff we need for lesson 1.7 in the work we did in lesson 1.3. So remember we played around with different unit conversions and converting like with area and volume. Yes, no, maybe? Kind of sound familiar? Okay, so we're going to just warm up to that today. Let's see, printouts are on the printer. I accidentally only printed one. So here's one for you. Let's get some more. I could have sworn I hit the more button on that. Print. I swear I did this. I must have been trying to do two things at once. Preferences, staple, I don't remember doing that. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'll have those up in a minute. I got an extra sheet for y'all to look at here. You could grab one, pass it back. In case you need some scratch paper, this is a particular piece of scratch paper relating to a scale drawing of the house and yard of the people who are going to help out here. Thank you. All right, so take a look at the objectives here of what we're trying to accomplish. So, oh. So we're going to do some calculations related to fixing things up. So we're going to play around with fixing up a yard. We're going to play around with fixing up a porch kind of area and putting together a fence. And so other things, sometimes it's worth it for us to do these kinds of things ourselves because we can do them and it's less expensive, but you know, we have to spend our time doing it. Other times, like for example, I can do a lot of different things. Like I know how to sheetrock, but I'm super slow at finishing it, making it pretty. And in my wife's opinion, it's way worth our time, my time, money, and her frustration that we pay someone else to do it instead of me. But other times, I'd rather do it myself. So here we're going to compare some costs, like from a bid from a company to lay down some new grass for a family. So the first problem that we're going to take a look at is laying down some grass for this lot here. And they've got a front yard, a backyard. A house takes up some space here, and the driveway takes up some space here. House looks what?
The house looks smaller than the yard.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So take a look. Notice there's a scale on here. And maybe it is a small house, but maybe it's just a really big yard. Each square is what by what in dimension?
10 by 10.
It's 10 by 10, yeah. So we can estimate the dimensions of the house by taking a look at the drawing. And so you're going to want to take some notes about how big is the house, how big is the driveway, how big is the backyard, how big is the front yard. So I'm just going to pause at that step right there and let you play around with this. Once we get an idea about how big the yards are, then we can start taking a look at the bid from Jerry's Green team on page 2 in terms of taking on this project here. So read through those questions on page 1, and then your job is to then estimate the sizes of things on the grid in page 2. And I gave you all an extra printout of that page there if you need to scribble around. So start working on it. Check with me or a neighbor if you get stuck, and then we'll resume together shortly.